All right, let me go back to the slides. So let's now, again, basically summarize about the development process in the textual form. So we want to distinguish between the two stages, compile time versus runtime. Again, compile time refers to when you are editing your Java code in Eclipse. And as soon as you save your file in Eclipse, it's going to launch the compiler in the Eclipse to check the syntax and also types for your program. Let's talk about different examples over here. So there are two kinds of compile time errors. One is about syntax, the other one is about type. Syntax errors simply means your program does not conform to Java's grammar. As an analogy, let's consider writing an English essay. So what can be a syntax error you can make in writing your English essay? Number one, it could be that you spell some words wrongly. And number two, maybe you're missing a period at the end of the sentence, or maybe you're missing a semicolon, maybe you're missing a hyphen, right? So those are analogous to syntax error in your Java program, you will see. Okay, before I show you the concrete example, let me show you how you can find them in the archive Java project we have just imported. Let's switch back to Eclipse. So that's the project we have just imported. So you can see the names for the Java classes. I try to make them very informative. You can see that these four, compile time, syntax errors, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to show them in my iPad in just a moment. But I want to show you one more thing before I switch. And then you can see the next two. So these are the compile time errors, but they are related to types. And also we got another two over here about the runtime errors. One is about the one that will throw an exception, and another one is without any exception, but it terminates with some logical error with an unexpected output. Right? We're going to see each of them one by one. So now for all these over here, you can see there's a red cross. Let me click on one of them. So this is a number one principle I would like you to remember. Always keep in your mind, right? I really want to emphasize this. As you are developing your lab exercises, lab assignments, or when you're completing your programming assignments, always pay attention to two places. Number one, you can see the tab over here, right? If the tab over here, for example, if the tab has a star over here, you can see the star over here. That simply means your current file has been edited without being saved and without being checked by the compiler. So you should always make sure you say Control S. Well, on Mac, you want to say Command S to save the file. And you can also find that you can see File and also Save over here. Okay, Save. You can even say Save All to save all the open tabs for your Java program, right? It's always important to make sure there's no star. Number two, you want to make sure there's no red cross over here. Apparently, there's a red cross. A red cross simply means your file has been saved, but it contains some compile time error, right? Remember the iPad over here we showed to you. So when whenever you get a red cross, that means you got either syntax or type error. So you're in this particular error states, right? I'm just trying to draw the connection to you. All right, let's go back here. And then second place you want to pay attention to. You can also see there's a problems tag over here, which I also show you how you can use. You can show it from Lab 0 tutorial video. You can see you want to make sure the list of errors over here should be 0. Currently, we got 7 errors in this particular project, right? So whenever you submit your lab assignments or submit your programming test, you want to make sure there is 0 error. There's 0 error either related to syntax or related to type in your submitted project, right? I cannot emphasize this enough. Please make sure you understand that, right? So now it's really important to make sure whenever you submit your program, it has to be at least compilable. All right, I'm going to go over each one of them one by one, but you can also see them from the Eclipse, right? And then I'm going to suggest for each one of them some fixed. You can try to fix them in Eclipse and make sure the error will go away. All right, let's now go over one by one. The first one about the syntax error, number one, is a very common one. Is this one here. Simply say, you can see I got one print statement over here or any statement here. So the idea, the principle will be at the end of every statement, you have to make sure you put a semicolon, but it's missing, right? So you should really put a missing semicolon over here. Okay, let me show to you what I wanted you to do. So if I go back to Eclipse over here, you can see at the moment there's a missing semicolon. That's why over here you can see it's very useful. Oh, let me just expand this. If I expand all the errors over here, For example, this one corresponds to this one over here, right? You can see that over here. It tells you where it is. It is in this particular project, right? You can see the path. That's the project. Lecture number 1, elementary programming. And then it's in this particular Java file, compile time syntax error 1. And if you simply click on that and double click, it will bring you to, you can see the mouse focus is now shifted to exactly where the syntax error is, right? It's a very handy tool you want to get used to in the IDE, in Eclipse. Once you go there, you can see this is where the problem is. If you move your mouse over the cross over here, it tells you syntax error, insert semicolon to complete the block statements, right? It's suggesting to you how you can fix it. So now if I simply put a semicolon, if I simply put a semicolon at the end over here, you can see it goes away. But you can see we still got the red cross over here, simply because the star, we haven't saved it yet. So now Control S to save it, right? So now this class is now okay. It's now free from any syntax error, right? Let me just undo it so you can just do the exercise yourself. All right? Okay, you can do for every one of them. Okay, that's the syntax error number 1. Let's go to syntax error number 2. So this one here is about missing ending double quotes, basically, right? So what does that mean? So whenever you want to put some string value in your code, you want to make sure it should be enclosed within a pair of double quotes over here. You can see we got the beginning quote over here, we got hello, and then we got the ending parenthesis, which matches this one here. However, we don't have any double quote to match this particular quote. So how can we fix it? You can simply put a double quote over here to fix it. So now they make a pair. All right. So this one's easy to fix. All right. Let's now go back to go to the next one. Syntax error number 3. So what about this one here? This one is harder to really spot, right? So let's now try to see exactly what's going on here. Basically, every brackets must be paired. They must be matching the beginning and also the ending one. So here we got missing ending curly brackets. So how do we see that? Okay, you can see from the compiler's point of view, what's happening is this. Let's go from inner to outer. Let's say for this particular line over here, and then we simply got this beginning curly brackets, and this one will actually match this particular ending curly brackets, right? It's matching that. On the other hand, we got this public class, compile time syntax error 3 class. That one has the opening curly brackets, but we don't have the closing one. So that's the problem, right? So you should always make sure not just curly brackets, but also not just the curly brackets, but also for square brackets or for parentheses. You should always match, right? So for example, if you simply get rid of this over here, it's also going to cause an error. You can try that yourself, okay? All right, so now how can we fix it? To fix it, you want to make sure you type just another curly brackets over here. So this one here is going to match this opening curly brackets here, right? Let's go to the next syntax error, number 4. So all these I'm talking to you right now, so these are the common ones you want to avoid as soon as possible. Number 4. So what about this one here? Again, we got basically the same matching problem. We got some extra ending curly bracket. Let's see exactly. Again, let's try to analyze in a way like a compiler. Okay, so now we can see from, we're gonna go from inner to outer. So now for this particular line, for the main method, so here we got the opening one, which will match this closing one. Agree? And then we got this class over here that has a beginning curly brackets, which will match this one here. So that's the problem, right? You can see this one here has nothing to match. No opening curly brackets to match. So that's why the compiler is showing you exactly this is where the error is, right? So now how can we fix it? To fix it, simply get rid of it, and then you'll be okay. All right, so these are the common syntax errors I can think of, at least to show you in the beginning, right? As you try to program throughout the semester, you might run into different syntax error, but at least try to get rid of these 4 as much as possible. All right, let's go back to the slides. So we just talked about syntax errors, about grammar. And then so these are just like a summary of the examples. And for those of you who might be interested, I would say most likely you don't want to waste your time, but I want to point out a reference to you. So the Java language specification actually specify what the grammar is for Java. I would say that may not be the most effective way to really learn a language. To really learn a language, you want to learn by examples and also by some principle suggested by your instructor, which is me, right? So you want to just stick to the example that we teach in class. This is just for an example, just a reference in case you need it. All right, and another category of compile time error is about type errors. So which means your program manipulates data in an inconsistent way. Let's go back to our English essay analogy. So type error is like you're putting, for example, let's say you're putting your noun in front of your verb. For example, I might say I heavy metal music play, which I really meant to say I play heavy metal music, right? If you actually got the order of the verbs and noun actually wrong, in that case, that would be considered as a grammatical error. In our Java context, it would be type error. Okay, hopefully the analogy makes sense to you. And let's go over some example. But if you go back to Eclipse, so these will be the two files that you have to look at, the type error. But let's now go back to my tablets. The first one over here, you can see nothing wrong about the syntax, but it's something wrong with the types. So we're going to talk many more examples later and also throughout the course. This one here, basically we apply operator to the wrong values. What does that mean? You can see this is multiplication. Okay, the star is really multiplication. And if you want to multiply something, you want to multiply one number by the other. So this is a number. So this is okay. However, this is not a number. This is a string. Not a number. So this is where it is wrong. Okay, so how can I fix it? Well, basically, if you want to fix it, you have to get rid of this particular string over here because you cannot multiply a string by a number. You want to put just another number. If you want to, so fix over here. So fix, you can say, for example, you can put 46. That's just another number, or which we'll talk about how you can declare variables. This will be slightly advanced for now. So you can fix by, maybe you can declare, for example, integer I. That's how you declare a variable. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about it. Is assigned to 46. And then I can simply replace the string York over here just by I. So that will be a second possible fix, right? So these are the two possible fixes to fix the type error. Let's go to the next type error. Okay, over here. So what about this one here? This is also very common. So refer to some undeclared variable. What's happening is here. We are declaring to the compiler that we are going to have a variable I of type integer. Initial value is 23. And then we say we want to print to the console over here j divided by 3. But where is j? What is j? J is not necessarily an integer. J could be a string. J could be any other type, right? J is simply undeclared. And if in the Java language, if you haven't declared a particular variable, so that means the reference over here is unknown. Okay, so how can we fix this? If you want to fix it, you can say before you try to use it, right? Try to insert a line over here previously. And then over here, you can say declare integer, maybe j is assigned to maybe I multiplied by 2. If you're not too sure how to trace this code, don't worry. I'm going to talk about this later in this lecture. Okay, so that'll be one way to fix it. You just have to declare, always declare the variable before you use it. Okay, that's basically the how you can fix this kind of error. All right, so that's about the two types of type error. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so that's basically what I just talked about, right? Okay, and then besides the compile time, we talk about runtime. And if you recall the flowchart over here, when we talk about the development process, so we just talk about how you can get either syntax or type error. So now we talk about at the runtime, right? This is runtime. There are two possible ways that things might go wrong. Either you got runtime crash, or you got no crash, but the output is simply wrong, right? Either way, let's see one by one. And then I will show you on the Eclipse. So the first one is about exceptions, meaning that your program crashes and terminates abnormally. Okay, let's see one example over here. So now the one to look at will be runtime exception. Before I run the Eclipse on this particular class, before I do that, let me just go over that example together with you. Okay, let me just go to that runtime example here. So let's this one should be quite easy to see. Remember, mathematically speaking, if you got a division, right? There's a division, right? Division by 0, mathematically undefined. Hopefully you're okay with this. And programmatically, this will be crash, right? Hopefully you can see the connection between the two, right? So now if I say crash, so what do I really mean? I want to show you precisely. If I go back here to the Eclipse, let me double click on that. You can see now, first of all, you can see there is no compile time error, right? There's no red cross, right? Let me just close the other tab so you don't really get confused. Okay. Of course, this class is not part of the errors list, so again, don't get confused. So now let me just emphasize over here. For this particular example over here, no compile time error. And the consequence is you may run your code, runnable, executable. That means this piece of code is actually executable. All right, so let's try to execute it. So now if you go back here, if I simply double click on that, and then I can simply click on run. If I run it, you simply say you got some other errors in the same project. That's okay. You can simply say proceed. We just want to run this class only. If you say proceed, and you can see exception, right? Basically, you can see anything that's called exception is like a runtime error. We may not talk too much about how exactly you can implement exception in Java. It's definitely the more advanced topic, but we'll do that. We'll just show you some application, some example that will throw exception. We'll get there throughout the course. It simply tell you division by 0. Okay, so that's like a runtime error over here, right? And then if you double click on this particular exception, you can see this is where the exception happened. If you double click on that, it tells you that you can see the focus of the mouse, the cursor is now here. So that means this is where the runtime exception occurred. All right, so you can see no syntax error, no type error. However, when you try to execute the code by hitting on run, it actually crashes without generating any output, right? Okay, so that's arithmetic exception. That's the one I just talked about. And then throughout the course, we're going to see later, once we introduce array, which is like a way to really implement collections, then you might have the array index out of bound exception. Don't worry, we'll get there later. And also, once we introduce objects after the reading week, we'll also learn about how you can refer to some object reference that's actually null. Okay. All right, another category for runtime error, the last one we want to look at is logical error. So this is the most difficult and challenging one to really get rid of. I would say even for very experienced programmer, somebody who's much better than you and me, even for them, they can still run into logical error. So you want to, what's the best way to really avoid logical error? You have to be very logical person, and you want to be very mathematical when you reason about programs. That's something I would like to show you throughout the course. Okay, so your program will terminate normally, like okay, but it simply does not behave as expected, right? So now if you go back to Eclipse, you're going to run this one here, runtime logical error. Okay, let me show you exactly what that one is going to do. The last one we're going to look at. Okay, so we're going to read, we declare some scanner, so that's something we show in lab 0. So we're going to say enter the integer radius of a circle, right? We're going to put a value from the user input from the keyboard into radius. And then we're going to print out the area of the circle. And we're going to apply this particular formula, right? There's no type error because since we got multiplication over here, we got multiplication. And then we use number, and also integer variable over here. So as far as type is concerned, it is okay. So there's no compile time error. And also we got semicolon here. There's no syntax error, for example. However, is this program correct? No syntax error, and then I can tell you that it wouldn't crash. However, is that really correct? The answer is it's not going to be correct. Let me show it to you. For example, let's see this. If I simply run this program over here, and then again, I'm going to proceed. Okay, enter the integer radius. If I say 10 over here, what do I expect to see? It should be 10 to the power of 2 multiplied by 3.14, which should be about 314, right? That's what I expect to see. However, it is something like this, too far from the correct result, right? It's simply because we got a logical error. So you can see no compile time error, no crash. However, the result is simply just wrong. So that's just another kind of runtime error that we refer to. Okay, so now I'm going to put some notes for you over here. Basically, number one, it compiles and also terminates without crashing. However, output is wrong. Okay, that's really the critical point you want to see from this particular example. Is simply because logical error occurs over here. Logical error, in this case, wrong formula. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you know, in order to calculate the area of the circle, so how can we fix this? So you're going to say that radius multiply radius square multiplied by 3.14, right? That will be the correct formula. So that will be the fix. Okay. So typically, to really fix the logical error, you will have to fix the logic in your program. So that's why you have to know what you're doing. Again, let me emphasize what I said before. In order to fix runtime error, either it's a crash. Either it's a crash or it's a logical error. To fix that, you have to use something called debugger in your program. Okay, I just noticed that it's a typo. I spelled it wrong. Okay, it should be double G, so it should be debugger over here. Okay. Anyway, okay. So debugger, I'm going to show to you in a later Java tutorial in a later week. All right, so that's about all the errors, different categories of error I want to show to you. You really want to understand exactly the difference between compile time and also runtime. Okay, that's the example we just went through. Finally, let me mention that compile time errors versus runtime error, that's something we just talked about. At the end of a programming test for your semester, right? Think about you're going to send your code for evaluation. In order to evaluate it, at least it should really be compilable, and then it shouldn't really crash, and also it should really generate the correct output. So now, number one, if your program cannot compile, that means it's too bad. So that means your program cannot even be executed from our end. So that means your program should really receive a 0 mark, right? But we know that you're really new to Java. However, this is what you should do. You should really practice writing program as many as possible in the very first 2 or 3 weeks. You really want to work hard on writing as many programs as possible so that at least you can submit something that will compile. And then once you pass that bottleneck, and then your program compiles, but with some runtime exception or unexpected output, some like a logical error. So that not necessarily 0, but since the program is still not correct, so the marks may not be very high. It might still be low marks. So what should you do? You want to truly understand the logic and also rationale behind the programs. And to really do this, you really want to study the behavior of the program, like the way I illustrate in the lecture. Right? We'll talk more about this throughout the semester. Okay, so that's about the runtime versus compile time. The final small topic for this particular part of the video, I want to talk about documenting your code. So each important design or the implementation decision should be carefully documented at the right place of your code. I would say this is a principle you want to know. I'll write it down over here, and then I'm going to illustrate this exactly in the weekly Java tutorial video. You will see that I will always try to write comments around the Java code, just to say what the code is doing. It's really for human being like you or some your peers, or maybe your instructor, or whoever is interested studying your code. They should really read the comments as well, not just the Java code. Okay, so there are two ways to write the comments. Let me mention them very quickly. Either you can put the comments in one line, you can put it in multiple lines. Let me just go there and then show it to you. Okay, in order to do single line, okay, you will simply just do 2 /. Okay, in order to do multiple lines, you can do you will start the block. It's called a comment block. / star, as many star as you like, and then the last one will be star followed by backward slash. Okay, sorry, again / beg your pardon. And so as many star as you like, and then followed by a /. And in Eclipse, there is some shortcut you can actually do, which will be Control plus /, or if you're using Mac, that'll be Command plus /. I'll show it to you. You can give it a try. For example, let me go back to Eclipse. Let's say for example, let me say this one here. How about this? If I want to put this particular line 15 into comments, which means it should I don't want it to be executed. In that case, I can say Control or Command /, and then it's going to put this line into comments. Right? You can try that, and then I'll just undo. Another way to do it is if I want to put a block of code into comments, which means I want to temporarily not to execute them, I can simply select the block over here, and then I can say Command or Control and then /, and that one there is actually going to put the whole block into comments. How can I remove the comment block? You will again, you will choose the block over here, and then you will say Command or Control /. That one is going to remove it. Yeah, give it a try and just put that into the practice of your Java programming. Okay, so that's about the two ways to do it, and it's important to note comments do not affect the runtime behavior of your program. So either you want to write some meaningful comments over here, or you simply want to put some existing code lines into comments so they wouldn't be executed. So there are two purposes. And they are only interpreted by human developers and useful for revision and also extension, meaning that if you really document well your code with a lot of rationale and also your design or implementation decisions, anybody who's going to take over your code for further developments or for debugging purpose, it will be much more effective for them to do so by reading your comments.